Hello and welcome to Digital Farm TV Rural News. I'm Andy Walker. The National Farmers Federation late last week acknowledged the release of the final Murray-Darling Basin Plan by Federal Water Minister Tony Burke. Irrigators greeted the contents of the plan with guarded scepticism and wariness. NFF President Jock Lawrie described the new plan as flawed, although he acknowledged the government had listened to some but not all of the concerns raised by the food and fibre sector and rural communities. The NFF had called for 5 outcomes in the development of the Basin Plan: a balanced outcome, a focus on recovering water from infrastructure, win-win outcomes for the environment and for communities, an extended timeframe for delivery, and for Parliament to have oversight of any adjustments. From the very beginning, the NFF had been calling for balance in the Basin Plan, balance that ensures strong regional communities, sustainable food production and healthy rivers, Jock Lawrie said. The government had moved closer to the balance the NFF had been seeking, but flaws remained. The final plan still put the needs of the environment ahead of those of the towns, communities and farmers within the basin. The Nationals' leader, Warren Truss, last week gave Sydney Airport Chair Max Moore-Wilton a public slap for his reported opposition to regional airlines using the big airport at peak hours. Former head of Prime Minister and Cabinet during the Howard era, Max the Axe Moore-Wilton, reportedly said Sydney Airport could operate a lot more efficiently if 40% of our capacity by law in peak hour wasn't restricted to regional airlines. Warren Truss said that as a member of any future government, he could categorically rule out any watering down of the slots reserved for regional airlines through Sydney Airport. People flying through Sydney from regional areas were not second-class passengers and would not be shunted off to faraway hubs, adding further inconvenience and extra travel time to their schedules. Sydney Airport had a responsibility to serve regional New South Wales passengers with direct access to their capital city, and so it will remain. The National Farmers Federation has welcomed the announcement that the Australian government will engage in negotiations for a new Asian region trade agreement. The Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership will bring together the 10 ASEAN countries along with Australia, China, India, Japan, South Korea and New Zealand to form a formal trade partnership. The main challenge today was the need to push this trade agreement along to ensure there were tangible outcomes, NFF President Jock Lawrie said. These 16 countries collectively accounted for almost half the world's population and contributed some 30% to global GDP. The Asian region was already a major export market for Australia, with some 64% of all agricultural exports going to China, Japan, the ASEAN countries and other parts of Asia. It is critical that Australian farmers have clear succession plans in place to ensure Australia's agricultural sector is well positioned to capitalise on the increasingly important role of feeding Asia's economic growth. This is the view of National Australia Bank Agribusiness, following a major survey that found that farmers approaching retirement were far less certain about how and when they would transition out of the business compared with younger farmers. According to General Manager of NAB Agribusiness, Khan Horn, what was striking about the research findings was how clear a picture young farmers had about their plans for the business. They had strong hopes and aspirations for their businesses right through until they retired, Mr Horn said. However, of those farmers aged 70 and over, more than 1/3 did not know when they would exit the business. This was a massive percentage, given they were technically over retirement age. Finally this week, in the Emerald Isle, poultry and egg processors have warned that a tsunami of imports supplying the retail and catering sector has left the Finally this week, in the Emerald Isle, poultry and egg processors have warned that a tsunami of imports supplying the retail and catering sector has left the Irish industry fighting for survival. Poultry meat imports into Ireland have increased by 74% from 49,133 tonnes in 2002 to 85,361 tonnes in 2011. Imports from Brazil increased by 245% from 1,165 tonnes in 2002 to 4,022 tonnes in 2011, while imports from Thailand rose by 472%, from 1,227 tonnes to 7,029 last year. More than 100 producers and processors have attended a crisis meeting in County Cavan last week, where they warned that thousands of Irish jobs were under threat unless the poultry industry stayed viable. The Producers and Processors Group is now seeking urgent talks with Agriculture Minister Simon Coveney and will lobby him for the establishment of a new poultry council. Oh, that's it for Digital Farm TV Rural News this week, and fortunately, that's it for my moustache. You won't be seeing that again next week, but hopefully you will join us again for Digital Farm TV. I'm Andy Walker.